I'll introduce you guys. Yeah.
My name is Angelina. I'm a senior here, and I'm also treasurer of the club.
Okay, I think I hear a little bit. Angelina, you say?
Yes, my name is Angelina.
Uh-huh.
My name is Rose. I'm a sophomore. I recently joined this club this semester.
Okay, nice to meet you, both of you. Great.
I'm Nicholas. I'm a junior. I joined last year.
Okay, nice to talk to you. Bueno, chicos, so yeah, I don't know if we're waiting for someone else, Paul, or how we are doing.
We're good.
We're good. We can start.
We can start.
Okay. So, well, first of all, I want to introduce myself, talk a little bit about why I'm here. So, I had the opportunity to meet Paul this January when he was taking a short-term marine biology class here in Costa Rica, when we had the opportunity to travel in several areas around the country to talk about like tropical marine biology things. And I also teach here in Costa Rica marine biology for international students. I teach also another class interesting that I would like to mention something about that. I teach freshwater ecology, and I want also for you to understand what is the connection with these classes besides the water, of course. And yeah, I study first in Costa Rica just biology. When I start, I was like wanted to study animals. That was the first thing. I didn't know exactly what, but I was like animals, biology, animals, and that was it. But then when I was in college, I started like working as a volunteer in a lab, a marine biology lab. So that's when I got interested in the field, and I start like going a little bit more into the ocean, and then I just fell in love with the water and the ocean and everything related. Then I finished biology here, but I went to graduate school also in Spain. And also in Spain, it was a little bit different because the approach, it was more related with conservation and with management. So I think I like to incorporate both things to work with the research, like to learn about marine biology, but also how to apply this knowledge for actually like practical reasons, how we can use that, how we can preserve our ecosystems if we learn about them. So that's a little bit about me. I don't know if so far you guys have any question or something like that.
No.
No?
No.
Okay. Okay, muy bien. So today I would like to talk a little bit about marine biology, but in the tropics. So what is the difference? And I'm going to put a little bit of emphasis in Costa Rica also. So I don't know if I can share a screen here. Yes, I can. Let me just go here. Okay, I think I'm sharing a screen right now, correct?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. So when we think about tropical marine biology, it's pretty much we are talking about this specific area of the world between the Tropic of Cancer here and the Tropic of Capricorn here. So this is what we call the tropics. And the tropics are going to have some specific characteristics that are going to make it a little bit different from when you study marine biology outside of the tropics. So there will be some different characteristics. What do you think? Anyone can think about one characteristic that is going to be different when you are in the tropics, like marine biology in the tropics or outside of the tropics? What?
Temperature?
Temperature, exactly. That is one of the main things. One of the things is that we're going to have, like usually and most around the country, we're going to have stable temperatures that they're going to remain the same during the whole year. So that can be an advantage. somehow because you can go always or most of the time in the water without how to worry about like fancy equipment and like a lot of wetsuits or anything like that. So that can be one of the great advantages. Another thing that the tropics are famous for will be biodiversity. So in the tropics, we're going to have a lot of an increase of biodiversity. And I want to show these graphics over here. First, I want to explain what they mean. So these numbers here in the y-axis are showing the biodiversity, and in the x-axis, we are showing the latitude. 0 will be close to the tropics, 50 or minus 50 will be close to the north, and 50 will be close to the south. So we are going to see that in a lot of groups, and I want to start here with birds. For example, aves will be birds. So we can see how there is an increase of biodiversity close to the equator. These are mammals, so we can see something similar, an increase of biodiversity close to the equator. But then when we think about marine organisms, I like to show these too. This one is Scleractinia. The meaning of that are corals. So we can see a huge increase of biodiversity close to the equator. So we're going to have one of the most diverse ecosystem in the planet, really abundant in the equator, which are coral reefs. So that is one of the importance. And we can relate this graphic over here of corals and more the biodiversity near the equator with this other one. This one is about fish. So we can also see how fish are going to be more abundant close to the equator. And the relationship is because when we have more corals, we are going to have also more fish. So that is another characteristic that we're going to find about the tropics and about marine biology in the tropics. So that is one graphic that I want to show. And when we think about like marine biology, we're thinking about the study of marine organisms, their behaviors, and the interactions with the environment. And of course, in this context, we are talking about this tropical environment that is going to have stable temperatures, that is going to have coral reefs and other characteristics. Now, give me 1 minute. I'm going to skip this for a moment. And when we think about marine biology, there is a lot of ways to study marine biology, and it's a huge, huge field. So we can think about, and I put specifically examples from Costa Rica, but these can be applied to a lot of other areas in the tropics. So one thing that we may study here will be things like the big, we call it like the big pelagic organisms. For example, whales, sharks, dolphins, like these big migratory organisms that we're going to find all around the tropics. So there are things that are not going to be so abundant here. For example, probably you are not going to see like a lot of orca whales, but we will have other kind of whales, whales that are going to migrate during the whole year, for example. In the case of Costa Rica, thinking about whales, we get whales humpbacks, for example, from the north when it's the winter in the north, and we get them from the south when it's the winter from the south. So we're going to have both of these populations coming to this specific area of the country. So another area, this is like the open ocean, and I was thinking about these organisms in the open ocean. But we can also think about shallow coastal ecosystems, for example, coral reefs. And I put this image here. This is a shallow reef in the Caribbean. Well, by the way, Costa Rica have an advantage as a country. And actually, let me go back here with the map before, so we can find Costa Rica in the map. So if we make a zoom here, this is where Costa Rica is located. So we are here. So one of the things that you can see is that we have an extended coastal area, and we're going to have both the Caribbean Ocean here and the Pacific Ocean here. And it's actually interesting because it's really fast to travel from one area and the other. So in the same day, you can be in the morning in the Pacific and then in the night or in the afternoon in the Caribbean side. So that is one of the great advantages also that we have here. Now, let me go back to the over here. Okay, so here, this is an example of a coral reef. And one thing that we can see here in the top is, for example, I don't know if you guys see it in there, but you can see some fins in there. Someone is snorkeling in there. So super shallow, someone is going to be able to have access to biodiversity without any using any kind of like fancy, complicated, not even scuba equipment. In this case, someone is just snorkeling in the surface and is going to be able to access and see all of this biodiversity. And that can happen during the whole year, again, because the temperatures are going to be the same. So that is another great advantage of marine biology in the tropics. Other fields can be something like fisheries. And fisheries are really interesting. This is a field that is suffering a lot, not in the tropics, but worldwide, including the tropics, of course, but everywhere in the planet, we're going to have the same problem with overfishing and how a lot of coastal communities are running out of these resources. So, for example, when we think about Costa Rica, again, we're talking about a developing country, a country that still have a lot of coastal communities that are suffering and depend completely on these small scale fisheries. And then if we think about like big fishermen and big boats and industry, these big industries may be competing with these small scale fishermen that we have. So that's another field. And then I put this other picture. This is I would like to talk this branch of marine biology, restoration. So restoration is when we are trying to recover an ecosystem. In this case, we have some students that what they are doing is replanting mangrove trees. So they are working in this reforestation of mangroves, which is another important tropical ecosystem that is suffering a lot, mainly because of cutting it, pollution, and there is a lot of other factors. And then I put this. Okay, I'm sorry. Anyone knows what is this animal over here?
It's a copepod.
It's a copepod, exactly. So copepods are, fun fact about copepods, the most abundant animal in the planet. So they are everywhere in the ocean, and because of our planet is mainly ocean, we're going to find it everywhere. And that's another brand. These are microscopic organisms, really tiny. You will need a microscope, of course, to see it. But where I was going is that this is another field that is getting a lot of attention. We call it like micro marine biology. So it's how we can study the small organisms. And I always tell the story of a professor that I had when I was in college, and he was a well-recognized marine biology, but he didn't like to get in the water ever. He was never like swimming, and he was like, no, 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 I don't want to get wet. I don't like the ocean, blah, blah, blah. So it was very interesting because he was a great marine biology, but he was pretty much collecting the samples and working in a lab. So that's another field of marine biology. Not so much fun for me, for me, but some people may like that. So that's another one. And actually, something that is happening now is that we are getting a lot of new medical properties from the ocean. So, especially in environments that like coral reefs that are so diverse, is it's similar, and we can compare coral reefs in the tropics with something like rainforests. In the case of rainforests, because there is so much biodiversity, there is also a lot of competition. There is also a lot of organisms trying to defend themselves against something else. So they produce a lot of chemical compounds that may have some medical properties. And the same thing is true for the ocean. And we just keep learning about new properties and new characteristics of organisms from the ocean. So it's a potential really good source of medicine for us. And I put this copper pot and I put another famous copper pot here that you guys may see it before. So plankton is based on a copper pot, for example.
Believe it or not, bro, it's actually quite big, 2 inches tall.
What? What is, sorry?
Never mind, never mind. I'm a big SpongeBob fan.
Okay, no problem. It's because I can hardly hear you when you guys talk. So, bueno, and why we need marine biology? Why is important to do or to study or to have professionals that are interested in marine biology? So we can think about basic stuff. One of the first thing is how we may get food out of the ocean. So a lot of communities, like I was talking before, completely depend on the ocean. For some of us, it may be something that we like once in a while. So we like to have a sushi once in a while. We like some shrimps. I remember that Paul really liked seafood. I remember he was a fan of seafood. So yes, for some of us, maybe something like that. But there is a lot of communities that is the main source of protein or the only source of protein that they may have. Another importance is medicine that I was talking about, how we can get like a lot of chemical products from it. And also something important is how the things that happen in the ocean is going to be related with our weather. So hurricanes, for example, El Nino, La Niña, all of those are going to be factors that are going to be related with what happened in the ocean. So that is also important to understand it. We can think about transportation. That is actually something that is increasing so much more every day, and not just people, but also products. So every time we get more products from all around the world. So that is something that is increasing a lot. And of course, we have tourism. And tourism can be something really important. We humans, we tend to be what is called biophilic and hydrophilic. So biophilic is that we like organisms or biodiversity, and hydrophilic is that we like water. So we tend to be close to the water and we pay a lot of money to go into a waterfall, a lake, a river, the ocean to see a sunset, for example, because it's something that really attracts to us. So the tourism part is going to be good for the local communities that are going to receive the tourists, but also for the tourists themselves that are going to this area and they will have time to enjoy, to get some kind of like mind peace or something like that. So it's going to be a benefit for everybody. So that's another of the importance of marine biology. So I'm going to skip this 1 minute, this graphic. And I have this quote over here that it says, in the end, we will conserve only what we love. We will love only what we understand, and we will understand only what we are taught. So I think it's really important to learn more about the ocean, to understand the ocean, and having that understanding can help us to appreciate it a little bit more and learn a little bit more about. Now, the other thing is how we can help to preserve the ocean. And I don't know if you guys are familiar with this. Anyone is familiar with these sustainable development goals? No? Okay, so I'm going to explain a little bit. The UN in the UN in 1917 create these goals with the agreement of all the country to achieve a sustainable future for everybody. So it's pretty much 17 goals that all the countries needs to sign and needs to direct or have specific actions in order to accomplish. When these goals are due, and this is the tricky part, they are due to 2030. So it seems that right now we just have 6 years to accomplish all of these 17 goals. So let's see the goals. Some of them are, and you guys are going to tell me, well, probably this is not going to happen. It says that for 2030, we are not going to have poverty, no hunger, good well and well-being for everybody, quality education for everybody, gender equality for everybody. So if we see this, we may see really a way to accomplish these goals. But the countries, they need to give a report every year to see how we are doing. For example, the next one, it's this year in Colombia, I think in a couple of months, and they will actually expose, like, they need to give an inform, okay, so how my country had improved into accomplish some of these goals. So the one that is more related with marine biology, and it's an important one, is goal 14. So life below water. So life below water is going to be, or is going to have, and actually I put the page here, the link, and in the link we can see, you cannot see because it's not going to show it, right? No, no, it's not showing the link. But anyway, what we can look in there. Oh, give me 1 second. This is not letting me. Is pretty much the specific of the sustainable goal. However, something important is that there is a lot of things to improve in this goal, but the UN create 9 specific points that are going to be the ones that we should care more about when we think about the ocean. And I want to go a little bit with these 9 specific points that are the ones that we need to act now. And some of them are related, a lot of them actually are related with the tropics. So I want to start with number 1, coral reefs. So the UN put coral reefs as number 1, mainly because this is one of the ecosystem, or it is the most diverse ecosystem in the ocean, but also right now is the most vulnerable ecosystem that we have in the ocean. Anyone knows why? What is happening with coral reefs?
Bleaching?
Coral bleaching, exactly. So coral bleaching is something that is affecting the corals. The corals are starting to die because they are losing these symbiotic algae that lives in their skeleton or within their bodies. And one of the main reasons for that is increasing temperature. So the increasing temperature is affecting a lot of these corals. And again, this is UN number 1 priority when we think about a sustainable development goal 14. Here we have another one. This one is tricky. This one is really difficult to see. Is the implementation of international law of the sea. One thing that happened with the ocean is that most of our ocean, and I would like to say, belongs to everyone or it doesn't belong to no one. So most of our ocean is international waters that is not part of any country legislation. So how you regulate what happened in there? And this has been a big, big problem worldwide because again, when we have a big area, and if someone is wealthy enough and they may come to this area and take all the resources that again belongs to anyone. So when someone is doing that, they are taking my resources, they are taking your resources. So this is pretty much resources again that belong to no one or everybody, depending on how you see it. So it's very interesting, and this is something that it will be necessary for all the countries to work together and try to accomplish a way to regulate what is happening in these international waters. So this one is tricky. Number three is also related with the tropics, mangroves. So here we have one of these consider one of the most productive ecosystems that we have in the planet. It's going to provide a lot of ecological services. It's going to protect coastlines, for example. It's going to be a nursery area for a lot of organisms. But again, they have been cut like drastically all around the world, and there had been a huge decrease in mangroves worldwide. So another of these priority. Number four, we have marine and coastal ecosystem management. So we have these areas, so we have this ecosystem, but how we are going to manage this? Do we have regulations? And something that is happening worldwide is that we just keep adding more and more infrastructure to the ocean, more buildings, more ports, more restaurants, more and more stuff, more houses also, without taking into consideration some factors that we should. For example, sea level rise. So if we think about sea level rise, coastal areas are the ones that are going to be more affected. So we need to make plans, management plans, in a way that these ecosystems are not going to be affected. Here we have, let me see, here we have marine pollution also. So marine pollution can be all kind. We can think about plastic, for example, that people talk a lot right now, and this is a big problem worldwide. We can think about oil spills. This is something that, for example, in Costa Rica, we don't have a lot. That's good because we don't have oil exploration, but there are countries, for example, the US or other countries that may have this as a big problem to solve. And even organic pollution. So when we think about fertilizers from farms, for example, eventually a lot of these fertilizers end in the ocean, and this is going to cause also other problems in the ocean like algae blooms, for example. Okay, let me go here to number 6. Number 6 can be also related, ouch, here, can be also related with corals. This is called ocean acidification. Have you heard about ocean acidification? Not really a lot. Okay, so ocean acidification, what happened is the following. The CO2 in the atmosphere is going to cause a lot of problems. We know about global warming, for example. But a second, and I like to call it the evil sister of global warming, is ocean acidification, because the same CO2, when it gets in contact with the ocean, is going to have a reaction. So water and CO2 is going to form carbonic acid. So the carbonic acid is an acid. And I don't know if you ever, anyone, tried to put something like, there is this experiment that you put something like a shell, like a tooth or a bone, and you put it in vinegar. So you put vinegar or lemon or even Coca-Cola, and you put something like that, and then it starts dissolving little by little. So organisms with shell, they get really affected by the change in the acid in the acidity of the ocean. So this is happening right now, and this is happening a lot. And the organisms with shells can be really affected. One organism that has a shell are corals. So same thing, the corals that are so vulnerable, they are also suffering from something else that is global acidification. So that is why it's so important to control the levels of CO2 in our atmosphere, is to help not just with global warming, but again, ocean acidification. And another thing that we need to focus is in scientific knowledge. So there is a lot of improvement. Every day we have more people working in learning and researching about the ocean. However, some papers actually mention how the rate of extinction is faster than the rate of research, meaning that a lot of species are disappearing before we actually get the chance to learn about it and, for example, use it. So that can be another issue with that we are behind in the scientific knowledge in the ocean. And I don't know if you ever heard this, that we know more about the moon than the bottom of the ocean. And it's true. So the bottom of the ocean is still a really unknown area for us. Right now, we are sending more remote operated vehicles and we are doing a little bit more, but it's still an unknown field. And here we have number 8, that is sustainable blue economy. So this is another concept that is being a priority from the UN. And this is how we can actually make money, let's say, or get a profit out of the ocean in a sustainable way. So how communities can actually use this resource that is the ocean without affecting it and making it sustainable through the years. So for example, ecotourism can be one solution for that. And then we have number 9. Number 9, there is actually a debate if it exists or if it doesn't exist. This is what is called sustainable fisheries. Some people argue that there are no sustainable fisheries, that the fisheries are all bad and that there is no way that this is sustainable. However, there is arguments. I think they continue to exist. I think it's possible to have sustainable fisheries, probably not like massive ones or international ones, but local small fisheries may be sustainable. But how we are going to achieve that, how we're going to actually get more of these sustainable fisheries. So these are the goals, and the idea is to actually we are able to advance in some of these goals and how the tropics are going to be also related a lot, and especially in the fields of the ocean with these sustainable development goals. Entonces, so I'm sorry, eventually I do some Spanish when I'm talking. So I don't know if you guys have any question, any specific. I would like to think or to hear what do you think? Any thoughts? It's hard the volume. How do you have a mic? Do you have a microphone or something or no?
I don't think we have a
We
mic.
don't have a mic.
I was gonna ask, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear it.
Okay, awesome. I was gonna ask, at least where you're working currently, have you seen or experienced firsthand any of these effects? And if so, what would you say would be your first steps to prevent them?
Yes, actually, yes. One example that for me is really sad and is related with one of these pictures that I showed you before, should be number 3. Here. So these coral reefs in the Caribbean, for example, this picture over here, I think is 2019. So it's an old picture. 2023 was an awful year for the Caribbean in Costa Rica. So we have an extended bleaching and going to the same area just like 1 year later. It was so sad because everything was completely bleached and I was able to see it like firsthand how it's been changed. So yeah, that is one of the problems. And what we can do about this? In a lot of cases, in this case, is mainly because of a increase in temperature. So that is one of the things that is affecting the most. However, some actions that the locals are doing is coral farming, which is also really interesting. So you bring corals from another place, like healthy place, you cut little pieces of corals and you start planting them around. So they have this project that has like 2 years in this specific area and it seems that is going okay. And that can be one example of something to do about these kind of things that is affecting the ocean. But yeah, that's one that I can think right now.
Actually, what they're doing with the coral reef, it actually reminds me, I recently went to Disney and I did the behind the scenes tour where they teach you about sustainability in the marine world and gardening. And it's very interesting to me that they're actually doing the same thing with coral reefs as they are with sustainable gardening, in which they just take a healthy plant, they cut it, and they plant it somewhere else. I just find that to be a very interesting similarity, and that fact that it's actually feasible.
Exactly. That's an approach. Worldwide coral farming seems to be it's tricky. Right now it's tricky. One of the things is that, for example, you may cut a piece and put it in one area, but if that area is still being exposed to the same increase of temperature, it's like not worth it. Like why you are doing that if the same thing that it was affecting them before is going to still affecting them. So that is the tricky part. Like is worth it to do all of that? Is going to actually have an effect? But one thing that people has been doing that I think is really cool is that you put these little pieces of corals first in a nursery area outside of the ocean. And in that nursery area, you expose them to higher temperatures. So you start like putting them like pressure for them so they can adapt. And once the one that they survive or the ones that survive are the ones that you are going to replant into the ocean. So with that, you are making sure that just the ones that are with the genes that are good enough to survive the high temperature are the ones that you are replanting in the ocean. I don't know if that has to do with your question or no, but
Oh no, that's great.
okay, okay. So yes, it's very interesting, and there have been a lot of other methods to do that. Some people, for example, one methodology that is used in Japan is that they are actually collecting when the corals reproduce, and the reproduction of coral is super interesting. They release thousands and thousands of sperm and egg in the water in the one specific day. So it's just crazy. And what they are doing in Japan is collecting those gametes and reproduce them in labs and then planting them. And same thing, they put increasing temperature, they increase the acidification just to make them more resistant, and those are the ones that they are replanting. Some people say that this is more like band-aid. So like a little band-aid that you put to like cure a little bit or if it's going to help. It seems that it's going to be good in a small scale to protect local areas or to replant local areas. Now, if we think globally, probably farming is not going to be enough to save coral reefs. So we need more specific action, and the main action in that is probably reduce of CO2. That is basically the only thing that can save the corals right now is to decrease the amount of CO2 in the planet so we don't get such a warm planet. See?
Uh, before in the beginning, when you first started, you were talking a bit about freshwater ecology.
Ah, yeah.
Uh, would you like to add on to that a little bit? Because that sounds really interesting.
Yes, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I forgot that I was going to mention that. Thank you so much. And it's actually here with this part. So, the first thing that I was going to mention about that is that when I started study, I was mainly in marine biology. So that was my first gadget and my goal and everything. But we were in the Caribbean, same place where this picture is, and we start seeing that there were also, besides the increase in temperature, there were a lot of sediment falling into the water that it was affecting the corals. So all the runoff with all the mud and everything, it was falling in the corals, and we were like wondering what is happening here. So we start like looking what was happening, and we see that it was mainly from the rivers that were like going into this ocean, that they were bringing a lot of runoff. So we start seeing like what is happening with these rivers. So we need to start like looking a little bit more like up the river to see what was happening. And what we discovered that the rivers were really affected by things like plantations. In the case of Costa Rica, what it was affecting them more, it was banana plantation and fresh and a pineapple plantation. So there was a lot of banana, a lot of pineapple, and what they were doing was cutting the sides of the rivers, like leaving no vegetation in the side. And because of that, there was a lot of runoff falling into the river. And then I started like doing more research with that, like how we can actually test that this water is polluted and how it is affected. And we start seeing, for example, macroorganisms, insects in the river mainly, that they are indicators of the water quality. So we were looking at these organisms and see how the health of the river, it was related with the organisms that you can find in there, and also with the coral reefs in there. So that was an example of how we start, and then I continue to do a little bit more freshwater ecology stuff, and now that's another class that I teach here also. Mhm.
Well, that sounds really cool, actually. Because I was thinking, I know a lot of marine biology is focused on saltwater because of the ocean and everything, but freshwater and stuff like creeks and stuff play a big role in the my other professor was telling me how when she first started, they would work with like creeks and smaller lakes and stuff, and working with the smaller biodiversity that they have there, like all the bacteria and the microorganisms. So I was interested in what you had to say about
Yes, yes, yes. Yeah, it's super important because everything in reality is connected. What is going to happen in the rivers, what is going to happen in land, the last place that everything has and is going to fall, everything is going to end up in the ocean at the end. So everything that happened on land is going to eventually fall in there. And even if people live away from the ocean, the actions that you have is going to have an impact in the ocean. Like even if you are not like super close or you are not in a coastal area, there is always an influence that you are going to have in the coastline. Bueno, entonces I don't know if you guys have any other question or anything else. ¿Estamos bien? Are we okay? Okay, guys, so it was great to see you. And if you guys have any question or anything like that, also Paul has my email, so you can just write me any moment and I will be more than happy to help you. Okay?
Thank you so much.
Thank
It
you
was
so
so
much.
lovely to meet you.
Thank you. Bye. Ciao.
Do you have a recording from the last?
He still never granted me access.
Also, Paul, question.
Yeah. How do you stop recording?
I don't know. Maybe hit the red dot.
Oh, wait, stop recording is right there.
Thank you.